BBC Radio 5 Live.
The voice of the UK.
Nicky Campbell.
Listen live, pause, rewind and discover with the BBC Sounds app.
Three really interesting people to hear from now. We've got Annie, who's got in touch with us. Good morning, Annie. We've got Zara, who's a dominatrix and webcam performer. And we've got Julie Bindle, journalist and feminist campaigner. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Hi. Annie, thanks for getting in touch. What would you like to say to us?
Well, I, for many years, worked for DWP, work and pensions, but I was a visiting officer to interview people for the Child Support Agency, giving their reasons and getting their money from the dad and whatever. And the number one reasons I was given for people splitting up was pornography. Now, I think they're not going to say that to their friends or to their neighbours. To me, I was a neutral. I probably was never going to see them again. And that was the number one. And when I was actually in a cafe to saying something about this, not about actual people, but just a general thing, a man sat near us and said, as he walked out, I found that in my profession, and he left. I said, who's he? And somebody said, the local vicar on his day off, he hadn't got his dog collar on. And he agreed with me. And I was also in Ipswich at the time of the sex workers all being murdered and whatever.
Steve Wright.
And, yeah, and we actually, in my job, I met them, not the ones who died, but others. And interestingly, they often had a relationship running alongside their work. I would say the majority of them didn't want to do it. I don't say there isn't a percentage who got something from it. And the same with these pornographic films, that some of the women queering them are probably okay with it, but I would say the vast majority were not, and certainly, as I say, in these relationships.
What do you think about what we're hearing about, people watching porn in inappropriate places? There will be some who argue there's no appropriate place, but yes, watching it.
I think never mind whether it's porn or whatever, at work,
exactly.
People shouldn't be doing anything on their mobile phone. They can be watching the Teletubbies, and that's wrong, because they should be concentrating on their job.
Last night's football, this is key.
Pornography is one thing. I think it's whatever it is. It shouldn't be being watched while you're at work. Full stop.
Exactly.
Yes, and it certainly shouldn't be pornography, but I would actually have a problem with anybody in the workplace doing anything on a mobile phone that wasn't part of their work, literally, because they got.
Yeah, but it's so offensive to the people around him and the women who saw it as well.
Oh, I agree.
Do you think, though, Annie, do you think that people were watching porn because they were splitting up, or were they splitting up because they were watching porn?
No, it'd been going on for years. No,
right, okay.
I think what happened, it got worse. Some of them who were a bit more open to talk to me, if you like, because I'd been sitting there having a cup of tea with them. It was then when they started wanting their partner to do the sort of things they'd been watching on the films, and that was the turning point of people actually saying, "Well, I've had enough."
Zara, respond to what Julie says. I'd be fascinated to know your views on Julie's position. Somebody we may have lost, I heard a little bleep in the background, and it wasn't a bad word being edited. I think it was Annie. Thanks for that, Annie. Brilliant stuff. Julie, hi there. What was your reaction when you heard this story about, nothing's, it's alleged, okay, let's put that one out there, but what was your story when you heard the allegation that a Tory MP was watching porn during, why am I laughing? This is so ridiculous. I just couldn't believe it.
It's beyond risible. But the first thing I thought was that he was doing it, if he did it, if somebody did do that in those circumstances next to female colleagues at work, it's a form of sexual harassment. And it reminds me back in the old days when I was 16 years old in the 1970s, I worked in a factory and I used to have to go into the canteen every day and see a load of porn that in those days, of course, was Playboy magazine or Hustler or whatever, that the men had out as a form of just sexually harassing and debasing their female colleagues. And it's no different with it being in the House of Commons, exactly the same kind of dynamic. And why would women feel uncomfortable? Well, because of what happens to the women in porn, which is debasing, humiliating, very often violent. And this is mainstream porn that you can get with one click without putting in your credit card details. And as we know from your earlier guests, kids as young as 8, 9, 10 are accessing this stuff that teaches them that women are there to be debased, humiliated and violated.
The first caller we had, Mark, earlier on this morning, it seems like a long time ago, 40 minutes ago, he said he was on a bus once and this guy in front of him watching male members, very much a phrase of the day, upright and ready for action. Somebody was watching it in the seat in front of him. A guy was watching it in the seat in front of him, and he objected. And the guy turned around and accused him of homophobia and gave him a right mouthful. So, what do you make of that? And also, people seem to have an entitlement and just think it's okay. That's the thing.
Yes, and it's become so normalised. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because so many men on the left, in particular, show their hypocrisy with this. So the porn trade is just part of the global sex trade, which trades on the misery and abuse of the most disenfranchised women. And it's the same on porn sets, despite the fact that we can all find, a woman who's atypical of that, who has a second home in the Cotswolds and who sends her kids to private school. Mainly it's women at the bottom of the rung of the ladder who have no choice but to do that. And these men that say the porn trade, the sex trade is perfectly reasonable and it's work like any other, they wouldn't say that about the tobacco industry. They wouldn't say it about other exploitative industries. And for example, in 2015, the left-wing Guardian columnist Owen Jones wrote his column in The Guardian defending 3 judges who were accessing porn during their work time and a male MP who had accessed pornography in his work.
Mr. Danchuk was...
That's right, Danchuk. And it was, we're talking about Owen Jones, the leftist poster boy, defending 4 public servants from accessing pornography whilst at work, which is absolutely disgraceful. And his justification for this is that most men watch porn. Well, yeah, that is a problem because, of course, we've normalised it to the point of where it's just something to snigger at, or it's seen even as a necessary release.
Okay. I want to get Zara's response to what you said about the exploitation. Obviously, Owen is not here to defend himself, but that article, I'm sure, is available and people can read that article and they can come to their own conclusions. Zara, what about the fact, Julie, that what Julie says about, it is 99% exploitation here, save the occasional exception of the woman who has a second home in the Cotswolds and sends her children to private school. Zara, as a dominatrix and webcam performer, in your experience, and you know the industry, but I believe you don't take your clothes off, does Julie have a valid point there?
I understand exactly where Julie's coming from. This industry can be very, very taboo. I understand that people have a lot of opinions. It's a multi-billion-pound dollar business. I don't agree with people watching porn at work. I don't think that's appropriate at all. Anyone in their right mind, it would be insane to be doing that. However, obviously people that go into this industry, it's actually something that they might enjoy. I've started an actual webcam platform for ladies, as it's still classed as the adult industry, that do not go onto camera and take their clothing off. We wanted to create something that was very, very safe for our ladies. Everything online, they have a consent form that they have to sign, which is all to do with content, etc. Anybody that comes onto our site, etc., they have to be checked. We don't necessarily have anything sort of pornography on there as such, but it is down to choice at the end of the day. We wanted to create something which was different from the porn industry. Essentially, we wanted to make women feel safe, and that's what.
Who are your clients? All walks of life.
They are all walks of life. So they're actually potentially guys, women that all have fetishes. So it could be that they want to worship somebody's boots, or it could be that they have a foot fetish and they want to worship someone's feet. And obviously these women get paid for that. Now, I wouldn't say that was degrading at all. And most of these ladies are dressed fully clothed in latex, and that is what would be a turn on for some of these men. And
you can obviously see the men worshipping your boots.
That's correct,
right.
Yes. And you can also do live sessions as well. So some of these submissive guys, you can do live sessions with them, and it might be that they actually might want to be spanked, etc. They have or to be trampled on. They like to have a strong, independent woman. Where they've got some high heel shoes on and they want to be trampled on their back. These are people that have things or a fetish that they need a release from, and it's not always a sexual release. They might want to be tied up. There's lots of different things within this industry, and it's not just about porn.
Julie, is there anything wrong with that? What would you say to Zara?
It's not that I'm not saying that there's anything wrong. at all. Far from it. With women,
if some guy wants to worship Zara's boots and
it's not
come to his own conclusion after doing that, is that how unhealthy is that, or healthy or otherwise?
Look, we can talk about atypical scenarios within the porn trade forever. We can look at particular individuals who have this fetish and that fetish, who do no harm, and the women that remain clothed. It's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about the harm it's causing to commercialize sex and to have a porn industry that is saturated with violent imagery and real women on the set, real women that are being abused and debased and violated. And if you look at all of the analyses, and I don't mean scientific studies where they link up porn users to electrodes or any of that nonsense. I'm talking about frame by frame analyses of mainstream, widely available porn films. They show in most cases that the vast majority of frames, that is 1 second frames, depict a form of violence against women, most of it which is actually a criminal offence. And this is what we're teaching young men, and this is what we're actually using as sex education.
Okay, Zara?
Yeah, no, to that question, obviously with regards to the porn industry, anybody that is going onto camera, they would have to sign a consent form legally to make sure that they are safe. These women are going online and obviously putting themselves out there, and they would have had to sign some consent form for somebody to act that out on them on camera. It's believe it or not, Julie, it is a very, very strict industry. They are, just so you know, they are clamping down on a hell of a lot. There's going to be regulations coming into porn, which actually fills me with a lot of confidence, and it will help with people's safety even more so. You mentioned earlier about young children actually being able to access these sites as well. They are bringing in a regulation, I believe, within the next year or so, where anybody that has to enter an over 18 site will have to legally provide their identification. We do need more regulation around this industry. Same with our site. Anybody that enters our site, they have to confirm that they are over the ages of 18. We also have a regulated bank. If you're taking payments, you have to be able to be old enough to be able to use that bank card. We have to follow Visa and Visa and MasterCard regulations on the site to adhere to all of that. There are now measures that are coming into place for safety.
Yeah, we mentioned those earlier on. Have you explored from curiosity, Zara, given what you do, that given you have men, for example, who want to worship your boots or to be chastised by you, have you looked into the psychology of that, as to because the psychosexual mindset is it's a bit of a diversion here, but it is intriguing as to what leads somebody to you described to as submissive men. What in their upbringing has led them to that situation? Have you looked into that?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, actually. Anybody that I speak to, anybody that comes onto a camera with me, I take great pride in actually finding out about their background. I think it's important to learn, as you say, what leads them to this.
Will you have a chat beforehand?
Pardon?
You have a little chat with them beforehand?
Yeah, what I do, anybody that I speak to on camera, I want to know their background. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to know things about their personal life. So that I can get a better understanding of who they are as a person. And actually, what I do find a lot of the time is that these guys are coming online to have counselling. They are coming online to have therapy. They don't always just come online because they're wanting to get off as such with something that might be a bizarre fetish. They want to talk to somebody because they don't actually have anybody in their life that they can talk to. Some of these guys want to dress up as women. They want to cross-dress. They want to have makeup put on. Some of them might actually wear diapers, and they feel a sexual shame about that and won't talk to people about that. They actually come online and want to talk about it. And it could be that there's been some kind of trauma that's happened in their life, or it's the fact that their partner that they're with isn't open to the idea of exploring other fetishes.
Julie, do you want to come back on that quickly?
Yeah, first of all, I'd suggest that they actually go to a counsellor, get some therapy, as opposed to paying into an industry that contributes to the hatred of women. And the other thing that I want to say...
Are you hated, Zara?
Definitely not. I'm worshipped.
Julie?
Right. Well, as I say, we can look at individual atypical people's experiences, but what we have to look at is the industry as a whole. And the idea, it perpetuates the idea that all men are potential rapists. Feminists don't do that. Porn does that, because what they say to porn consumers is, you can get your rocks off safely, despite the fact that there is a woman on the end of that camera, and then you won't have to go out and, as one pornographer said to me, rape a real woman. That's the language they use. They have a pessimistic view of men as potential rapists, and that they have to debase women who are there through no choice. And I'm not talking about atypical women. I'm talking about the typical vast majority of women involved in pornography, which is prostitution with a camera. It's abuse of women, and it perpetuates rape and rape culture.
Do you think? Sorry, Zara, you're going to come back in.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that's very powerful, and I completely understand where Julie's coming from.
Absolutely, yeah, it was really strong. You know what, Julie? I was saying this morning at our meeting. Every day there seems to be a story about violence towards a woman, or in the news, in the big news bulletins, or a woman being murdered. And I was thinking, is it worse now than it ever was before? Or is our news just far more embracing and we cover more stories because of 24-hour news? Or is it a mark of the fact that we take this more seriously now? What the hell's going on, Julie?
I think that when you commercialise women's bodies in the way that we have, through prostitution, through the surrogacy, rent-a-womb trade, through the vast mainstreaming of pornography, which we don't even call it hardcore anymore. That is mainstream. It's what we used to call hardcore back in the 80s and 90s. Then what you're going to see is a rape culture that is played out in real life against real women's bodies. So in some ways, I think it's worse. For example, we have a conviction rate of reported rapes of under 1% at the moment. And so unless 99% of women are lying that report rape, then we have an awful lot of rapists walking free, being given the message that violence against women is a sport and a spectator sport on occasion, and that this is what we are perpetuating, and this is what we're drip feeding to young men and to young women.
Thank you both so much. That was fascinating hearing from Zara, dominatrix, and Julie Bindle, journalist and feminist campaigner. I want to just further explore a bit more on this, about what's happening with young people in schools. And also, we are going to talk about the scandal in care homes when it came to COVID and the unlawful actions of the government. That's coming up in the next hour. I hope you find that interesting.
The voice of the UK. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.